My name is Isla Monroe, and 3 years ago, I was kicked out of my father's house with a duffel bag, a cracked phone, and exactly 187ers in my bank account. Today, I'm sitting on a wraparound balcony overlooking the Pacific Ocean, sipping cold brew from a glass that costs more than my entire high school wardrobe. The house behind me paid in full. 7 bedrooms, custom smart kitchen. The kind of place my father used to call a waste of money for people with no sense of responsibility. And yet here I am, still not asking for his approval. Before I tell you how I turned rejection into revenge, comment below where you're watching from. And hit like if you've ever been underestimated by your own family. This isn't just my story, it's a blueprint for anyone who's ever been told they're not enough. I grew up in a forgettable suburb outside Seattle. Boxy houses, gray skies, and neighbors who talked more about lawn fertilizer than dreams. Ours was the brick one on 10th Avenue with the 2-car garage and the broken porch light my dad never got around to fixing. To outsiders, we were respectable, middle class, church on Sundays kind of people. But behind closed doors, my father, Gerald Monroe, ruled with an iron tongue. He wasn't physically violent, but emotionally, he could slice you to ribbons with a single glare. I was the youngest of 3, the only girl. My brothers Caleb and Owen could burn the kitchen down and still be called boys being boys. I got detention once for defending a kid being bullied, and I was grounded for 2 weeks and labeled an attention seeker. Why can't you just behave like your brothers? He'd snap. Because I wasn't trying to be them. I was trying to survive. My mother, Marianne, was the kind of woman who looked elegant even when exhausted. Her silence was her armor. She used to teach music at the local community center until Dad decided it was a waste of time. After that, she just stopped. She folded her dreams into laundry baskets and left them there. She rarely raised her voice, but I could feel the screams behind her eyes. When my father criticized me, she'd quietly set an extra cookie beside my plate. When he stormed out of the room, she'd whisper, "One day, you'll leave this place and never look back." It took me years to realize she was talking to herself as much as to me. I wasn't the golden child. That was Caleb Starr, athlete, business major, the one who gave Dad bragging rights at the office. And Owen. He was the funny one, the charmer. Failed 2 semesters, but somehow got boys will be boys energy instead of consequences. Me, I was the computer nerd. The girl with ink-stained fingers and a second-hand Lenovo I fixed up from Craigslist. I taught myself to code using library Wi-Fi because our house had a no screen time on school nights policy, except when my brothers played Xbox at full volume. Fairness didn't live in our house. I used to stay up past midnight building websites for fake businesses. Dog grooming apps, pizza delivery trackers, even a prototype for a journaling app that synced voice memos. My father said it was just digital garbage. But my grandmother Delilah saw something different. Grandma Delilah, Mom's mom, was the first person who made me believe I could matter outside of my father's world. She gave me her old desktop PC when I was 13. Huge, clunky, and slow as molasses, but it was mine. She didn't ask for straight A's or violin recitals. She just asked what I was building next. The world doesn't belong to those who wait for permission, she told me once, sipping tea with whiskey in it. It belongs to the ones who build without it. That woman was fire in a floral blouse. She died the week I turned 17. Her will left me $9,000 and a handwritten note that said, "Get out, start something, and never let a man name your limits." That note lives in my wallet, still. By the time I hit senior year, I'd built 2 actual client websites and a basic app that helped students create flashcards from class notes. I wasn't a prodigy, I just didn't stop working. When I got accepted into the University of Southern California for computer science, I thought just for a second that my father might be proud. He wasn't. "California," he scoffed, reading the letter like it was a parking ticket. "You want to run off to some liberal city to play tech princess instead of learning real business?" I told him I didn't want to go into finance like Caleb. He laughed. "You think coding websites makes you special? You'll be broke in a year." That was the moment. That was when I knew I had to leave. Not just physically, but mentally, emotionally. I couldn't keep begging for validation from a man whose love was a locked box with no key. On the day I left for college, my mother helped me pack in silence. She folded my favorite hoodie tucked in a family photo I didn't want, and kissed my forehead with watery eyes. My father didn't even come downstairs. I got on the bus with 2 suitcases and a promise to myself. I will never ask them for help again. I will build a life so full they'll choke on their absence in it. Life in Los Angeles was chaos wrapped in sunshine. My dorm smelled like ramen and ambition. My roommate Tiana was a design major who introduced herself with, "If we're going to be stuck together, you'd better not hog the outlet." She became my first real friend. She taught me how to speak up in rooms filled with loud voices. I taught her how to debug her portfolio website. We built something unspoken between us, trust without conditions. The scholarship covered half of my tuition. The rest I earned the hard way. Freelancing, tutoring coding newbies, selling website templates online, sleeping 4 hours a night living on caffeine and grit. I didn't have time for boys or parties. I had an empire to build. One night over microwave pizza and startup memes, Tiana said, "You know your code's clean enough to launch something real." I blinked. Like an app? Yeah, like a damn company. That was the seed. What it grew into changed everything. Tiana didn't waste time once she got an idea in her head. By the end of that week, we were sketching out wireframes for what we called our quiet rebellion. We called it Bite Back, an app that helped freelance creatives and students track their unpaid invoices, send polite but firm reminders, and log contract violations. Because let's face it, getting paid for your work shouldn't feel like begging for scraps. The idea came from our real lives. Tiana had designed 5 websites and only gotten paid for 2. I'd been ghosted by 3 clients that semester alone. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. We knew there was a gap. People our age were building pitch decks about virtual hedgehogs in the metaverse, and we just wanted to make sure broke students got paid on time. She handled the branding and visuals. I built the back end from scratch, pouring hours into clean code, scalable databases, and an intuitive dashboard. We didn't sleep much that semester. We didn't party. We didn't even tell most people what we were doing because it was ours. Raw, imperfect, but alive. By spring, Bite Back had its beta version live with over 300 users. Mostly college freelancers, art students, junior devs. The feedback was gold. People told us it gave them confidence. One girl messaged to say she finally confronted a shady client thanks to our auto-escalation tool. "This app made me feel like I mattered," she wrote. I saved that message. And for the first time in my life, I started to believe I did. We pitched Bite Back at the campus startup showcase. I rehearsed my lines 100 times, nerves buzzing under my skin. Tiana joked, "If we don't win, at least we've got a solid rejection to cry about over margaritas." But we won 3rd place. A small grant, just $1,000, but it felt like we'd been knighted by Silicon Valley. I remember calling my mom that night. She answered on the 3rd ring, her voice cautious. "Isla, everything okay?" I told her about the app, the grant, the showcase. There was a pause, then a soft, "I'm proud of you, baby." I held the phone so tight my knuckles ached. I didn't cry. But something in me cracked open. Then she added, "You should tell your father. He might not say it, but I think he'd be impressed." I almost laughed. But I didn't want to argue, so I just said, "Maybe." I did tell him. Stupid, I know. But some part of me still craved his nod even after everything. I sent him a carefully worded email. Just the facts. Professional tone. No emotion, no begging, just, "Here's what I've built. Thought you might want to see." His reply came 3 days later. 1 sentence. "Nice little side hustle, Isla. Hope you're still focused on getting a real job after college." That was it. Not even a period at the end. I showed it to Tiana. She stared at the screen, then looked at me and said, "I don't care if he's your dad. That's some cold-blooded nonsense." I shrugged, but my chest burned. "It's not new," I said. "But this time it doesn't get to define me." And I meant it. At least I thought I did. The rejection turned into fuel. We used the grant money to buy better hosting, upgrade our UI, and pay a copywriter to polish the App Store description. Our downloads tripled. I started doing TikToks about scammy clients and freelance horror stories, sneaking Bite Back in at the end. It worked. The algorithm liked angry girls with good code. One of those videos caught the eye of Maya Singh, a former product manager from Google turned angel investor. She slid into our DMs like a myth. Just downloaded Bite Back. Y'all built this yourselves, impressive. We booked a call. I wore my one blazer. Tiana wore combat boots and zero patience for tech bro nonsense. Maya was sharp, curious. She grilled us for 2 hours and ended with, "I'll wire $20K by Monday." It's not just your product I'm betting on. It's your hunger. I think I blacked out from shock. I remember smiling so hard my face hurt. I remember hugging Tiana in the middle of our shoebox apartment like we'd just won the lottery. Because in a way we had. I didn't tell my family. Not because I was hiding. Because it didn't matter anymore. That summer, we moved into a co-working space near downtown LA. Shared desks, bad coffee, great energy. Our tiny seed fund let us hire a part-time community manager, a contract lawyer, and upgrade our analytics. Biteback passed 10,000 users in September. People started tagging us on LinkedIn, sharing screenshots, saying thank you. And then came the email that changed everything. It was from Pitch Catalyst, a startup accelerator that took only 5 companies a year. They offered mentorship, legal support, and a $100K investment in exchange for 7% equity. We couldn't afford lawyers yet. But Maya looked over the terms and said, "Take the deal. You're ready." I barely remember the flight to San Francisco. I remember the moment we walked into the Pitch Catalyst building, though. Glass walls, polished floors, VCs in jeans that probably cost more than our rent. I felt small, but in the way a storm cloud feels small right before it splits the sky. Tiana whispered, "They have no idea what we're about to do." She was right. What we didn't know was that someone else already knew. Someone watching from far away. Someone who saw our names in a press release and made a call. My father. But I wouldn't find that out until later. For now, I was just a girl with a dream, a business card, and a thunderstorm brewing in her chest. And the world was finally listening. The week we got accepted into Pitch Catalyst felt like standing at the edge of everything we'd fought for. It wasn't just validation, it was access. Rooms full of people who could make or break our future with one coffee meeting. Tiana and I flew back to LA on a high. We'd barely unpacked before my inbox exploded. The emails started pouring in. Recruiters, reporters, tech podcasters, early-stage investors hoping to grab coffee. Most of them didn't get a reply. We weren't interested in hype. Bite Back wasn't a trend. It was a toolkit for survival, and we weren't finished building. But one name caught me off guard. It wasn't in my inbox, it was on Forbes.com. Headline, Seattle finance legend backs daughter's startup after major accelerator deal. I blinked. Once, twice. The photo loaded. There he was, Gerald Monroe, shaking hands with a local reporter outside his firm. The article described how his early guidance and business acumen inspired Isla Monroe's entrepreneurial journey and how his family values seeded her discipline. My breath caught, my hands clenched. There was no quote from me, because I hadn't spoken to him in over a year. And yet, there he was, taking a front row seat to a show he never believed in. I sent the article to Maya and Tiana. Tiana was livid. "He's riding your coattails like he built the damn ladder." Maya was more measured. "You have 2 options," she said. "Ignore it or destroy the narrative. But do it on your terms." I didn't answer right away. I needed space to think. That night, I lay awake in our apartment, the city glowing through the window like a heartbeat. I kept hearing his voice in my head. Nice little side hustle. That one sentence had echoed in my bones for months. Now he wanted to reframe the story, rewrite the script, make himself a silent investor in my resilience. I remembered what Grandma Delilah once said, "Some men don't want daughters. They want protégés who never outshine them." This wasn't about pride anymore. It was about truth. The next morning, I wrote a thread on Twitter. 3 years ago, my father told me I'd be broke in a year if I studied tech. He called my company a side hustle. He kicked me out at 19 with $187 in my bank account. Today, I read an article where he claimed to have guided my success. So here's the truth, unedited. I laid it out. The silence, the dismissal, the mockery. I didn't bash him. I told the story as it was. Clear, sharp, unapologetic. The thread went viral in 24 hours. Journalists picked it up. Creators stitched it. Dozens of women messaged me sharing their own stories of being erased, rewritten, edited out of their own wins. I didn't do it for attention. I did it because erasure wears a smile and a suit. And if I let that lie live, it would eat the truth from the inside out. To no one's surprise, my father called. I didn't pick up. He left a voicemail. I was just trying to support you. I thought you'd be flattered. You need to learn how the media works. I saved the message. For documentation, for clarity, for closure. Maya texted me later, that thread. That was your pitch deck. Everyone sees who you are now. That week, Bite Back was featured in TechCrunch. Not because of drama, because people saw the why behind our code. We weren't building convenience. We were building armor for every underpaid, underestimated, overworked creative who'd been told to be grateful. But the fallout wasn't over. 3 days after the article, I got a call from my mother. Her voice was soft. He's furious, Isla. He's calling it defamation. I closed my eyes. Everything I said was true. I know, she whispered. But you know how he is. And that's when I realized something. I didn't. Not anymore. I didn't know how he was. I only knew how I'd been trained to tolerate it. I'm not that girl anymore, Mom, I said. And I'm not sorry. There was silence. Then she said the words I'd waited my entire life to hear. You shouldn't be. I hung up, sat in the quiet, and let it settle. I hadn't burned the bridge. He had. I'd just turned on the lights so people could finally see it. That weekend, Bite Back hit 50,000 users. The growth wasn't linear, it was volcanic. Every time someone shared our story, it wasn't just about tech. It was about being seen, paid, respected. It was about dignity wrapped in digital code. Maya brought in a legal advisor to help us prepare for the next funding round. Tiana focused on product updates. I handled the partnerships and analytics. We barely slept, but the exhaustion was earned. We were running on spite and momentum, and yet something still felt unfinished. The press started reaching out again. Not just about the product, about the father-daughter drama. Tiana warned me, don't let this become the story. I nodded, but part of me wanted to say one last thing. Not to him, to the girls watching. So I agreed to one interview. 1. I sat down with a mid-size podcast called Founders Unfiltered. The host, a quiet, curious woman named Lena, asked, "What would you say to your younger self back when you were kicked out?" I paused. Then I said I'd tell her it's not your fault, that some people only love you when you're useful. But you don't have to shrink to earn peace. You don't owe anyone silence just because they share your blood. The episode aired a week later. And just like that, I stopped being Gerald Monroe's daughter. I became Isla Monroe. Founder, coder, nobody's footnote. Success has a strange way of revealing people. It doesn't just magnify ambition, it exposes cracks you didn't even know existed. Bite Back wasn't just growing anymore. It was scaling. Investors who once ghosted us were now emailing twice a day. Our inbox became a minefield of offers, some real, some exploitative, most wrapped in flattery that sounded like concern. Maya helped us filter the noise. She had this radar for fake smiles and blazers. But even she couldn't see what was happening right next to me. Tiana had always been the fire. The kind of person who kicked down doors while I quietly rewired the locks. We were opposites, but complementary. She made Bite Back feel alive. Our design was bold because she was bold. Our voice on social media, all her. I handled the back end, the numbers, the long nights with messy code and tired eyes. But once the money got louder, so did the questions. Why aren't we pushing ads? Why don't we license the algorithm to agencies? Shouldn't we charge freelancers more? They'll pay anything if they're desperate. I didn't like it. Bite Back wasn't built to squeeze people. It was built for the ones already squeezed by everyone else. I said no. Repeatedly. Calmly. I thought that was enough. At first, Tiana shrugged it off. You're right, ethics over shortcuts, but I started noticing a change. She stopped joining dev check-ins, missed 2 product reviews, spent more time on calls I wasn't invited to. I asked once what's going on. She smiled. Just exploring brand partnerships. You don't need to worry about it. I wanted to believe her. I chose to believe her. That was my first mistake. The second was not looking closer when the Bite Back blog started publishing SEO-driven posts about client risk ratings and tiered protections. It sounded helpful, at first. But then I saw a draft titled Introducing Bite Back Plus Premium Payment Protection for Elite Freelancers. That wasn't in the roadmap, and I didn't write it. I confronted her that night. The office was quiet except for the buzz of the espresso machine she'd insisted we install. "What is this?" I asked, holding up the printout. Tiana didn't look surprised. She crossed her arms, leaned back in the chair we bought off Craigslist 2 years ago, and said, "It's evolution. Charging people extra for the same protection we promised them for free. It's called a business model." I felt the floor tilt beneath me. We built this for people who couldn't afford to be exploited. And now we are people who can't afford to be naive, she snapped. We have staff to pay. Advisors. We're not two broke students anymore, Isla. Grow up. It wasn't her words that hurt. It was the way she said my name, like I was the problem. Like I was holding us back by refusing to sell our soul. We didn't speak for 3 days. Then came the meeting with Thorn and Bright, a venture firm known for backing disruptive tech with a reputation for burning founders who didn't adapt. They wanted to invest $3 million for 20%. Maya advised caution. Their contracts come with golden handcuffs, she warned. Say no now or say goodbye to creative control. I was ready to decline. But Tiana, she came to that meeting with a pitch deck I'd never seen. One that listed her as CEO. One that outlined Bite Back Plus new revenue tiers and a roadmap that had nothing to do with what we promised our users. I sat in that glass-walled conference room blinking at a screen that didn't recognize me. The investors smiled. Looks like you've got 2 visions here, one of them said, trying to sound diplomatic. So which direction are you really going? Tiana didn't look at me. Not once. Afterward, I waited until we were alone. When were you going to tell me? I didn't think you'd listen, she said. I built this with you. No, she said, her voice flat. You built the code. I built the brand. And brands scale. That was the moment I knew something had shattered. Not just the trust, but the friendship that carried us through ramen-fueled nights and rented dorm rooms and shared heartbreak. She wasn't my co-founder anymore. She was a rival in disguise. I walked out. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just left. That night, Maya met me at a diner we used to brainstorm in. She slid a notebook across the table. Your name's on the original IP, she said. You wrote every line of code. If she tries to move without you, she's walking on legal ice. I didn't want a lawsuit. I wanted my company back. But Bite Back didn't belong to me anymore. It belonged to the people who believed in what we stood for. If Tiana took it in another direction, I couldn't stop her. But I could show up. I could remind the world what Bite Back was and what it was never meant to become. The next day, I sent out a letter to our user base. No corporate jargon, no legal drama, just honesty. I'm Isla Monroe, co-founder of Bite Back. You may have noticed some shifts in direction recently. I want to be clear, our original mission was to protect freelancers, not monetize their desperation. I can't stop all the changes, but I can promise you this, my voice won't disappear quietly. The response was overwhelming. Some users canceled, some demanded refunds, but most, they stood with me. Maya smiled. You don't need a product to have power, Isla. You have people. That night, I sat alone on the balcony of our rented office watching the skyline blink like a heartbeat. I thought of Grandma Delilah. I thought of that first email from my father. I thought of Tiana's laugh when we won that first grant. And then I thought about what came next. Because I wasn't done. Not even close. There's a moment in every founder's life when you stop asking, what do I do next, and start asking, what do stand for? That moment came for me the morning I stared at the new Bite Back homepage redesigned without my approval. Flashy language, subscription buttons in gold, a quote attributed to both Tiana and me that I never said. Protection has a price, but peace of mind is priceless. It sounded sleek, sophisticated, like something you'd hear in a corporate boardroom before a round of champagne. But it wasn't Bite Back. Not the version we bled for. Not the one that held space for every young freelancer afraid to chase down an overdue invoice. I didn't recognize the site, and for the first time, I didn't want to. So I made a choice. I didn't sue. I didn't fight for control. I stepped away, not in defeat, but in defiance. Tiana could keep the code, keep the brand, keep the funding she thought would save her. I'd keep my integrity and start again. Maya didn't say I told you so. She just poured us both black coffee and asked, "So what now?" I stared out the window of her downtown office. LA traffic shimmered under the morning sun, a reminder that the world kept moving even when your heart broke a little. "I don't want to rebuild Bite Back," I said finally. "I want to build something better." She raised an eyebrow. "Any ideas?" "Not yet, but they were coming. I could feel them like thunder in the distance. I started from scratch. No investors, no co-founder, no noise. Just me, a blank screen, and the same beat-up laptop I'd used to build my first prototype in college. Funny how starting over feels like coming home when you've already survived the worst kind of betrayal. I called it Threshold. It wasn't a replacement for Bite Back. It was something different. A platform designed to help freelancers manage boundaries, not just payments. Contract generation. Red flag detection based on client behavior. Real-time peer reviews. A soft exit system that guided creatives through disengaging safely from abusive work relationships. It wasn't just software, it was self-defense. I worked in silence for months. No press, no pitches. I coded until my eyes burned and my wrists ached. I'd forgotten how peaceful the grind could be without meetings, branding decks, or whispered office politics. Just pure, focused building. And then in the middle of a late-night debugging session, I got an email. Subject line, "You don't know me, but I think I owe you everything." It was from a girl named Anya, a junior designer in Atlanta. She had used Bite Back religiously before the subscription changes. After losing access to key features, she got stiffed by a client for 3 months of work. She wrote, "I've followed your story. I left Bite Back when you did. I don't know what you're building now, but if it's half as honest as you are, I'll be your first user." That email hit me harder than any investor check ever had. I emailed her back, invited her to beta test. Within 2 weeks, she'd invited 5 friends. Within a month, we had over 1,000 on the waitlist. Maya introduced me to a nonprofit incubator that offered free office space in exchange for mentoring younger women in tech. I accepted without hesitation. It felt right. If this new chapter meant slower growth but deeper impact, I was all in. But life has a way of looping back on itself when you least expect it. At a networking panel hosted by the incubator, I was asked to speak on ethical tech and founder integrity. I almost declined, but something in me said it was time. I showed up, notes in hand, heart steady. After my talk, half story, half warning about the cost of compromising mission for money, I got approached by a quiet man in his mid-50s. He introduced himself as Cal Becker, a former advisor at Thorn & Bright, the same VC firm Tiana had pitched. "I read your exit letter," he said. "Didn't agree with how they handled it." I nodded, unsure where this was going. He continued. "Full disclosure, Tiana came to us again, with a different version of Bite Back. They funded it, but now she's struggling. Growth stalled, user trust collapsed. I didn't feel smug, I felt sad. She said you sabotaged her," he added. "But the data tells a different story." "I never sabotaged her," I said simply. "I just refused to follow." He looked at me with something like respect. "If you're building again this time on your terms, we'd like to talk." I thanked him, but declined. I wasn't ready. Not yet. Because Threshold was still becoming. Because some things deserve to grow without strings. Because sometimes walking away from the spotlight is how you find your light again. Later that week, I launched Threshold publicly. No ads, no influencers. Just a quiet video narrated in my voice explaining what it was, who it was for, and why it mattered. People came. Thousands. Mostly women, mostly freelancers, mostly exhausted from being gaslit by glossy platforms and empty promises. I gave them clarity. We reached 25,000 users in 6 weeks. The press came calling again. I answered, but only once. I said, Threshold is not a comeback. It's a continuation. Some of us aren't here to disrupt, we're here to protect. Not to conquer, but to restore. And for the first time in my entire career, I didn't feel like I was defending myself. I felt like I was home. The day the letter arrived, I was debugging Threshold's new dashboard. My inbox was full of partnership requests. Our feedback loop was clean. Our users were growing faster than we could onboard them. Everything was steady until I saw the handwriting on the envelope. It was my mother's. I hadn't spoken to her since the night I told her I wasn't that scared little girl anymore. She hadn't called. I hadn't chased. I figured silence was the cleanest boundary we'd ever shared. But the letter wasn't long. Just a folded page in her careful cursive. Your father had a stroke. He's stable but different. I don't know if you want to see him, but he asked about you. No guilt, no pressure, just those last 5 words. He asked about you? I sat still for a long time. My code editor blinked quietly in the background waiting for instruction. But I wasn't ready to move. Not forward, not back. I thought I'd buried the part of me that needed anything from Gerald Monroe. Maybe I had. But this wasn't about need. It was about closure. Maya didn't question me when I told her I'd be flying to Seattle. She just said, whatever happens, remember who you are now. The drive from the airport felt like déjà vu. Same streets, same gray clouds, same house with its tired shutters and faded brick. But the girl who used to live here, she was long gone. I walked in quietly. My mother looked older, smaller. She hugged me without words. I let her. Some wounds didn't need salt, just acknowledgement. He was sitting up in a chair when I entered his room. Thin, pale, a man dismantled. His eyes flicked up slow and unsure. Then he smiled, crooked and unfamiliar. Look what you became, he whispered. Not a greeting, not an apology, just a sentence heavy with regret. I didn't cry, I didn't snap, I just sat down. It's strange, I said, how someone can spend their whole life trying to prove something to the wrong person. And then realize they were never supposed to need that proof. He nodded silent. I'm not angry, I added. I'm just done carrying weight that never belonged to me. He closed his eyes. I don't remember everything, but I remember being proud. I just didn't say it. That's your burden, I said, not mine. He chuckled, weak but real, still sharp. I didn't stay long, just enough to say goodbye to the ghost of who I used to be. When I left, I didn't look back. I stayed in Seattle 2 more days. Visited Grandma Delilah's old apartment, now rented by strangers. Stood by her favorite bakery and remembered the way she used to smuggle cookies into her purse. She once told me the world will teach you to shrink. Your job is to stay loud. I heard her voice in every corner of that city. Back in LA, Threshold was humming without me. My team had grown diverse, empathetic, razor sharp. Anya now led user research. Our lead developer was a single mom named Keiko who coded with a baby monitor beside her laptop. We weren't just a company. We were a constellation of people who'd been overlooked, underestimated, and still showed up shining. When a journalist asked if I'd ever consider selling, I smiled. Some things aren't meant to be flipped. Some things are meant to last. We hit 100,000 users by spring. I stopped counting after that. Because numbers weren't the legacy. The letters were. Hundreds of them. Emails, DMs, voice notes, stories from freelancers who walked away from toxic clients, designers who renegotiated contracts, writers who used our language to reclaim their time, and always, always that one sentence. I didn't know I was allowed to say no until I found your platform. That was it. The legacy I didn't know I'd wanted, the one my father never understood, the one I never asked for but fought to build anyway. And yet life still surprised me. 6 months after my visit, I got another letter. He'd passed in his sleep. My mother didn't ask me to come to the service. She just said, it's this Friday. I'll leave that choice to you. I didn't go. Instead, I wrote a short post. Gerald Monroe and I shared a bloodline, not a blueprint. He built from ego. I build from empathy. But he taught me in his own way that silence is its own kind of teacher. Rest in whatever peace you earned. I've already found mine. Some people called it cold. But those who knew really knew, understood it was the warmest thing I could write. That summer, I bought a small house near the water. Nothing flashy. Just sunlight, wood floors, and a garden where I planted wild thyme like Grandma used to. I framed her old note and hung it by my desk. Never let anyone clip your wings. I didn't. Not my father. Not the investors. Not the people who said I wasn't enough. And definitely not the version of me who once believed them. I get asked now, what's your proudest moment? Not the TechCrunch feature. Not the funding rounds. Not even the day we crossed 1 million users. It was the day a girl from Detroit messaged me and said, "Your tool saved me from signing a contract that would have buried me. You gave me words I didn't know I was allowed to use." That was it. That's always been it. Giving voice to the quiet, giving armor to the gentle, building tools that whisper you deserve better. Because some of us weren't raised to believe that, but we learned. And once you learn, you teach. That's how you build a legacy that doesn't need a last name. That's how you turn silence into strength. That's how you rise.
Story 2. I'm Alex, and today I turned 21. You'd think that'd matter, big milestone birthday, right? A small dinner, a cake, at least a happy birthday text from my parents. But of course nothing. My family had other priorities. I wish I could say I was surprised, but honestly, this is par for the course. Since I was a kid, my parents made it clear I was their runner-up. My younger sister Emma is the golden child. Whatever she wants, she gets. Whatever attention she needs, it's hers. If I ever ask for something that even slightly inconveniences them, tough luck. Still, I clung to this tiny spark of hope that turning 21, finally an adult, would change things. I don't live at home anymore, so I dodge their favoritism most days, but surely on my 21st birthday, they'd make an exception, right? That morning, I texted the family group chat, "Hey, what time are we meeting for dinner?" Silence. Hours went by. I busied myself thinking someone would ping me back by early evening. Then came that familiar sinking feeling. I called my mom. She answered on the second ring too calmly. "Hey, Alex. What's up?" I swallowed hard. We're still on for dinner tonight, right?" A long pause, then a sigh. "Oh, honey," she said, far too sweet. "I should have told you earlier. We're going out tonight with Emma. She has some big news to celebrate." My stomach plummeted. "Excuse me," I managed. Her tone stayed detached, almost bored. "Emma's our focus tonight. We'll celebrate her news. Don't worry, a party for you next weekend." Behind her, I heard Emma's voice. "Is that Alex? Tell him we'll save him some leftovers." I hung up my birthday, disappearing in the background of their perfect little world. More laughter. I felt my face heat up. This wasn't just neglect. This was deliberate. I could have argued. I could have yelled. But what was the point? They knew what they were doing. They just didn't care. So I swallowed the lump in my throat and said, "Yeah, sure, have fun." And then I hung up. I sat there for a moment staring at my phone. My hands were shaking, not from sadness. No, I was pissed. Then I had an idea. I called my girlfriend Lily. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice even. "Want to go out for dinner tonight?" She could tell something was up immediately. "Of course. What's wrong?" I told her everything. She didn't even hesitate. "Come over. My parents will want to celebrate with you too. Now." I love Lily's parents. They've always treated me with more kindness in the past 3 years than my own parents have my whole life. And when I got to their house, her mom greeted me with a hug. "Happy birthday, sweetheart. Come in. We're going somewhere nice." We ended up at this high-end steakhouse, the kind of place my parents love to brag about going to. The whole night was perfect. Lily's dad even ordered a bottle of champagne to celebrate me turning 21. And for the first time that day, I actually felt wanted. But the real fun that happened when I posted about it. After dinner, I took a picture of the restaurant entrance and posted it on Instagram with the caption, "Huge thank you to my girlfriend and her amazing family for making my birthday special. So grateful to have people who actually care about me." I wasn't expecting a response from my parents. I figured they wouldn't even see it until the next day. But less than an hour later, my phone started blowing up. First, a text from my mom. "Mom, what is this post, Alex?" Then my dad. "Dad, are you serious right now?" Then a full-on phone call. I let it ring, smirking to myself. Then another, then another. They were fuming, and I knew exactly why. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't regret. It was jealousy. They were the ones who were supposed to be seen as the good parents. They loved playing the role of the perfect family, posting online about their fancy dinners and how proud they were of Emma. But suddenly, I was the one getting attention for being wronged, and they hated that. I finally picked up on the fourth call, keeping my voice casual. "Oh, hey, Mom. What's up?" She went off. "What the hell are you doing, Alex? People are seeing this. You're making us look bad." I held back a laugh. "I'm just thanking the people who actually showed up for my birthday." She gasped like I had stabbed her. "How dare you try to embarrass us like this? You know we would have celebrated with you if we didn't have prior commitments," I snorted. "Oh, right. More exciting news. We raised you, Alex," she snapped, "and this is how you repay us by making us look like that." Parents. I was done, so done. I took a deep breath and said, if you didn't want to look like bad parents, you probably shouldn't have acted like bad parents. Silence. Then my dad got on the phone. "You need to take that post down now," I grinned. "No, Alex." His voice was low, threatening. "If you don't take it down, there will be consequences." I leaned back in my chair. "Oh, like what?" He didn't answer right away. I could hear my mom whispering furiously in the background. Then he said, "We're coming over." And that Reddit is where things got really interesting. I leaned forward, gripping my phone as my dad's words echoed in my ear. "We're coming over." A rush of adrenaline shot through me, but I kept my voice steady. "All right," I said, barely able to contain my smirk. "See you soon." Then I hung up. Lily, who had been sitting next to me on the couch, raised an eyebrow. "That was your parents, wasn't it?" "Oh, yeah," I said, shaking my head. "They're pissed. Apparently I've embarrassed them." Lily rolled her eyes. God forbid they deal with the consequences of their own actions. Her dad, who had been listening from across the room, scoffed. "Let them come. They should see what an actual loving family looks like." Her mom, ever the voice of reason, sighed. "This might get ugly." "Are you sure you want to deal with them tonight?" I exhaled slowly. "Honestly, yeah, I do. I'd spent years letting them treat me like an afterthought. Years of watching them drop everything for Emma, while I was expected to just deal with it. And for the first time, I had the upper hand. They were desperate, scrambling to control the narrative. That meant I was finally doing something right. About 20 minutes later, I heard the unmistakable sound of a car pulling into the driveway. I stood up, stretching like I had all the time in the world, while Lily gave me an encouraging squeeze on the arm. "You got this," she murmured. The doorbell rang. "No." Slammed 3-4 times in rapid succession. "Oh, they're mad, Matt." Lily's dad chuckled and made his way toward the door. "I'll get it." The second he opened it, my mom stormed in like she owned the place. My dad followed, his jaw tight, his eyes immediately locking onto me. "Alex!" My mom's voice was sharp, cutting through the air. "We need to talk now." I crossed my arms. "Go ahead." Her gaze flickered around the room, taking in Lily's parents, the cozy atmosphere, the clear evidence that I was fine, thriving, even without them. It clearly unsettled her. "Not here," she said stiffly. "Come outside. No thanks," I said, leaning against the couch. "If you have something to say, you can say it right here." My dad clenched his fists. "Enough with the attitude, Alex." I raised an eyebrow. "Attitude? Oh, you mean standing up for myself?" "Sorry. I'm still getting used to this whole having self-respect thing." My mom let out a sharp breath, her patience wearing thin. "We are not going to let you publicly shame us like this. Do you have any idea how many people have seen your post? Your aunts? Your uncles? Do you know how humiliated it is to have our own son paint us as villains?" I blinked at her, then deadpanned. "Maybe don't be villains then." Lily snorted, and even her dad fought back a chuckle. My mom's face turned red. "We are your parents, Alex. We deserve some respect." "Oh, respect. You mean like the respect you showed me when you ditched me on my birthday? Or when you laughed at me on the phone, but when you made it abundantly clear that Emma will always come first?" I shook my head. "Sorry. I must have missed the part where you actually earn my respect." My dad took a step forward, his voice low. "You're being dramatic." "No, I'm finally being honest," I shot back. The tension in the room was thick. My parents weren't used to this. They were used to me backing down, apologizing for folding. But not this time. Then my mom's gaze landed on Lily. More specifically, the way she was sitting so comfortably beside me, holding my hand like she belonged in my life. And that's when I saw it. The moment my mom realized that I had people now. People who weren't obligated to love me, but did anyway. People who saw my worth. Something she never cared to do, and she hated it. "So this is what this is about," she said, voice dripping with condescension. "You're trying to replace us with them." Lily stiffened beside me. but I just shrugged. "If the shoe fits?" my dad scoffed. "Enough of this nonsense. You're taking that post down now." I grinned. "No." His nostrils flared. "Alex, don't test me," or what I challenged. "What exactly are you going to do?" "Ground me. Take away my phone." "Oh wait, you can't because I don't live under your roof anymore. You have zero control over me." That hit a nerve. My dad's face turned an ugly shade of red, and for a second, I thought he was actually going to lose it. My mom, on the other hand, had gone eerily quiet, and that's when she played her trump card. "You're going to regret this, Alex," she said softly. "You don't realize what you're throwing away." I tilted my head. "What am I throwing away exactly?" She gave me a knowing look. I looked at send a cold chill down my spine, and then she said, "Your inheritance." I couldn't help it. I actually laughed in her face. It was almost instinctual, like a reflex. I couldn't hold back. I looked at my mom, eyes narrowing, and let out a short, bitter laugh. "Inheritance," I echoed, still chuckling. "What inheritance? You think I need your money. You really don't get it, do you?" She froze, clearly thrown off by my reaction. I leaned forward, crossing my arms. "You've never done anything for me. You've made it clear every chance you've gotten that I'm not important enough for your time, your energy, or your love, so spare me the lecture about what I'm throwing away. Because guess what? You've got nothing left to give me." My mom's mouth opened and closed like a fish, her face twisted in a mix of confusion and anger. "And if you think I'd ever accept anything from you after all this, you're delusional." I continued, shaking my head. "I don't need your money. I don't need your fake love. You've already given me everything I need to know about you, and it's nothing I'm willing to keep around." My dad looked like he was about to explode. He took a deep breath, his fist clenched at his sides. "You're ungrateful. You really want to throw away everything we've given you?" I almost felt sorry for him, but then I remembered he had a choice too. He could have stood up for me, could have actually been a parent instead of a lapdog to my mom's whims. He never did. "No." "I'm not ungrateful," I said calmly. "But I'm not going to sit here and pretend I don't see the kind of people you are. You made your choices, and now I'm making mine." Lily's dad gave me a reassuring nod from across the room, his eyes full of quiet pride. I noticed my mom flinch at that, and I couldn't help but feel a small sense of triumph. She had been so consumed with controlling my life that she'd never even stopped to think that I might be better off without her. "You can't just cut us out of your life like this," my mom said, her voice trembling now. "We're your family. You'll regret this, Alex. You'll come crawling back, right?" I said sarcastically. "I'll be right there begging for more empty promises and disrespect. But that'll never happen, because guess what? You've already shown me who you really are." I stood up, my legs feeling surprisingly steady. "And I'm done, so if you want to keep throwing threats and guilt trips at me, go ahead. But just know I'm not falling for it anymore." My dad opened his mouth again, but this time he just snapped it shut. They had nothing left. The power they once held over me, the manipulation, the control. It was gone. My mom's eyes were practically burning with fury, but I didn't flinch. Instead, I turned to Lily's parents, giving them a nod of appreciation. "Thanks for letting me have this moment," I said softly. "But I think it's time for them to leave." Lily's mom, Ever, the calm one, smiled and stood up. "We're going to grab a drink in the kitchen. You two should talk." As they walked away, my mom's voice shot through the silence. "You're making a mistake, Alex. You'll see." I didn't even acknowledge her. I was done listening to their empty threats. I didn't need to say anything else. The silence between us was thick, suffocating, as my mom and dad stood there, still processing everything I'd just thrown at them. They had no idea what to do with me anymore. Their usual tactics, guilt manipulation, the emotional blackmail they had always used to keep me under their thumb weren't working. Not this time. I stood there feeling more powerful than I ever had in my entire life. It wasn't just the fact that I was finally standing up to them. It was the realization that I no longer cared about their approval. Lily's parents stayed in the background, sensing the tension, but giving us the space we needed. I could feel their support without it ever needing to be said. They weren't just on my side. They were family in a way that felt real. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to apologize for existing. Finally, my dad spoke again. His voice low and dangerous. You think this is funny? You think you're going to get away with treating us like this?" I locked eyes with him, unfazed. "Get away with it, Dad. I've been trying to get away from you for years." The words hung in the air, stark and painful. It was like a weight I'd been carrying for so long, finally lifted off my chest. My mom, still fuming, tried one last tactic. Her voice softened, but it was clear she was just as manipulative as ever. "Alex, we're your parents. We've always been here for you. All we've ever wanted was to help you. Don't you remember all we've done for you, how we've always supported you?" I shook my head, trying not to laugh again. "Really, is that what you think? Because I don't remember any of it. I remember being ignored, pushed aside, made to feel like I wasn't good enough. I remember being the last choice. But sure, if you want to pretend that you've been perfect, go ahead." Her face twisted in a mixture of shock and fury, and I could see the cracks in her perfect little world start to form. She hadn't expected me to fight back like this. She thought I would fold, then I would cave in and beg for their approval, like I always had. But that wasn't who I was anymore. "This is your fault, Alex," my mom spat, her voice shaking. "You're the one destroying this family. You think you can just replace us with them." I looked at her, my eyes cold. "No, Mom. You've been replacing me my whole life. This is just me finally realizing I don't need you anymore, and you've already lost." She took a step forward, her eyes burning with rage. "I'm your mother. You will never get rid of me." I held up my hand, cutting her off. "I don't need to get rid of you. You've already done that to yourself. You've pushed me away for years. You've made it clear where your priorities lie, and I'm not on that list." Lily's dad stepped forward, his calm demeanor cutting through the tension. "I think it's time for you two to leave now." His voice was steady, unshakable in the finality, and his tone made it clear there would be no more discussion. My mom stared at him, fury flashing in her eyes, but even she knew she was losing. My dad muttered something under his breath and started to walk toward the door, his shoulders tense. But he didn't say another word. They both walked out without another word, the door slamming behind them. I stood there, still processing everything that had just happened. It was surreal. Lily came over and wrapped her arms around me. "You did it," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You stood up for yourself. I'm so proud of you." I hugged her back, feeling a rush of relief wash over me. I don't even know how I did it. It's like they just finally don't have any power over me anymore. Her mom and dad came over and gave me encouraging pats on the back, but it was Lily's words that really stuck with me. "You're not alone anymore. We've got your back. Always." The weight on my chest had finally lifted. For the first time, I could breathe without that constant pressure weighing me down. I could see a future where I didn't have to beg for scraps of love or attention. A future where I made my own choices, where I was in control. The whole night felt like a strange, surreal blur, but I knew one thing for sure. I had finally stood up for myself, and I wasn't going back. Hours passed in. The evening continued on, in a strange kind of calm. The tension that had built up throughout the night seemed to have evaporated the moment my parents walked out the door. But that calmness didn't last long. Just as I started to relax, my phone burst. I glanced down at it, half expecting something Monday, but as I saw my mom's name flashed across the screen, I could feel my blood pressure rise again. I didn't even want to look at it, but I did anyway. A text from her. "We're not done here. You'll regret this. We'll be contacting the lawyer about your inheritance. You'll pay for this." I could almost hear her shrill, venomous voice in my head as I read the message. It wasn't a threat, it was a promise, and I knew it. But the difference now is that it didn't scare me anymore. It didn't hold the weight it once did. I glanced at Lily, who was sitting next to me, her parents giving us some space to just process the night. I showed her the message, and she let out a soft laugh. "Is she serious?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Dead serious," I muttered, but there was no trace of fear in my voice. If anything, I was amused. I hit the reply button, my fingers typing with confidence, almost like the words were coming from a part of me I didn't even know existed. "You're right. You won't be done here. But I'll tell you this. Keep your money. You can keep your inheritance. And when you decide you want to talk to me like an adult without the threats and the manipulation, you know where to find me. But don't bother trying anything else. It won't work. And if you think I'm scared, you've got another thing coming. I hit send and the weight that had been on my shoulders for so long felt even lighter. It felt like I had closed a chapter of my life that had dragged on for way too long. Just as I put my phone down, it buzzed again. This time it was my dad. He didn't even bother with a message, just a string of angry voice notes. I clicked on the first one, listening to him rant about how I was ruining my life, how I was going to regret this, how I was throwing everything away. I let the message finish, then clicked the next one. Another tirade, the same insults, the same empty threats, and then another, and another. They were getting more frantic, the desperation in his voice growing, but none of it hit home. I didn't even bother replying. I didn't need to. There was nothing left for me to say. Lily's dad caught my eye from across the room, raising his eyebrows with a knowing look. "Everything okay?" I nodded, my lips curling into a small but satisfied smile. "Yeah, they're just not used to me standing up for myself, but they'll get over it." Lily leaned in closer, wrapping her arms around me again. "You've got this. They can't touch you anymore." And that was the truth. I realized something then. There was nothing they could take from me that mattered. Not their threats, not their manipulations, not even their inheritance. I'd already walked away from their version of family and stepped into something real. My phone buzzed again, and I glanced down. This time it was a text from my sister. "Mom and Dad are furious with you. You really messed up this time." I could feel the old anger bubbling up again, but this time, I wasn't going to let it control me. I wasn't going to get sucked into her drama, her victim complex. I wasn't going to play her game. Instead of replying, I looked at Lily, smiling warmly. "You know what I said standing up? I think it's time for a celebration. I'm done with all of this." I grabbed my jacket, turning to Lily's parents with a grin. "Let's go grab some drinks. We've got a lot to celebrate." As we left, I didn't feel the bitterness or regret I had expected. Instead, I felt like I was finally walking away from a life that had been holding me back into a future that was mine to shape. And as I stepped out into the cool night air, I realized that the family I'd been searching for, the family I had been longing for, had been here all along. Not in the people I was born to, but in the ones who chose to stand by me, who supported me, who cared about me. I didn't need anyone's approval anymore. I didn't need their toxic love or their manipulation. I had found something better, and nothing, not even their money or their threats, could take that away from me. And that, for the first time in my life, felt like true freedom. So what do you think? Am I out of line for standing up to them? Or did I do the right thing?